So hi, I'm Carlos Fernandez and I'm delighted to be with all of you today. It actually blows my mind about all the exciting stuff you could be doing today, going to restaurants, shopping, doing drinks on a Friday evening, but yet you choose to be here. I do want to apologize though. I usually wear a suit Monday through Friday while I'm working from home, but today is casual Friday, so I'm just in a t-shirt. Anyway, we are offering free drinks to everyone. So, we don't usually do that. So enjoy it. I would like to welcome all of you to this Chicago booth angel networking event. And we got a dazzling lineup of people here. I'm really pleased to welcome one of the most prominent people in Southeast Asian venture capital, Koi, who's the co-founder and managing partner of Monks Hill Venture Partners. At Monks Hill, he's backed the likes of Ninja Van, and previously he did Twilio while he was the CEO of the Infocom Investments. And I think Koi is the sort of VC one really needs in this region. And he's not unwilling to advise companies that aren't in his portfolio. That made a personal impact on me, and I say that from personal experience. So without much further ado, I'd like to invite Koi to take the spotlight. I'd like to start, Koi. Thank you for taking the time to be here. But I'd like to start with one particular question. What's the craziest startup idea you've seen during this whole COVID situation?
Well, not a whole lot in terms of craziness. I think, it's pretty much, I would say, relatively speaking, almost business as usual in terms of the number of deals that we have seen. So I think, folks are, generally speaking, though, a lot more moderated in terms of their expectations. As the craziest thing we can probably, sort of have seen is our guys are still expecting some of the revenue to be looking questionably high and frothy going forward. So I think some of those are getting more moderated now in general. So I don't think we've seen anything that's outrageous. Number of deal flow remains the same. In terms of Series A, we'll focus on Series A stages, so we still see the same roughly 15, 20 deals a week, to be honest. Nothing crazy yet, and I don't think Gons have got. I don't think 2 months of lockdown have led to any sort of crazy ideas yet. So still quite same.
So, how should startups be thinking about fundraising during this climate? I've spoken to some entrepreneurs, and I've said, do you look clueless going to a VC trying to raise funding at this time?
No, I don't think so. I think the same kind of expectations remain in terms of the business being viable. Sort of the opportunity set. What's the value proposition and the problem and all that kind of usual stuff. But I think on top of that now, what VCs and what we do, for example, now is really think hard about, why would this funding be needed at this point for this business, right? Is it for survival or is that genuinely an opportunity for growth, right? And asking those questions teases out, the dynamics, the expectations about why, the value proposition makes sense. I think what makes it a bit more challenging is a lack of certainty in terms of certain types of demand in the future. So I think that adds on the additional layer of, conviction and trying to get comfort around any sort of business plan. I would say, the lack of ability to travel does add the complexity, for conversations and due diligence, right? I mean, ultimately, for us, for example, we do want to see the team. We do want to spend time with the management team, the founders, etc., and see operations on the ground before we get to a certain level of conviction, and backing a team and an idea. So obviously now without the travel, it makes it a lot harder, right? And the question that we ask is how do we get the same level of conviction, assuming that international travel, because we invest across the region, remains constrained, for the foreseeable 6 months or so. We have team members on the ground across all the countries. Singapore is where we're headquartered. We have teams in Jakarta. We have teams in Vietnam. We have teams in Thailand and Malaysia. So it's helpful to have folks on the ground. And so we're working as best as we can. But fundraising is still a challenge from that perspective, right? If you're a founder and investors are not able to do the due diligence they would like to get a conviction. So I think that's something to be figured into in the fundraising.
But you look at deals at a Series A stage, right? So you need to see a little bit of momentum. You need to see a product out, maybe some sort of semblance of product market fit, or are you still I remember, I thought y'all were also looking at slightly earlier stages. Are y'all firmly in the Series A stage, or late seed, or how does that look for you?
Pro forma for us is Series A, right? Series A is a sweet spot for us. We've done some pre-A level. So in terms of check sizes, we've done anything from 2 million to 7 million in terms of check sizes. And we've done some smaller checks, but those are non-pro forma. Those are a little bit more outside of the core. There should be some level of traction. There should be some level of market engagement already for the product and the founders, etc. But to get conviction around the entirety of the investment thesis, it's hard to replace having spent time, right, with the team over a substantial amount of time. There's something to be said about sensing the culture, the dynamics, of folks over a period of time. Whether it's over a serious conversation about the business plan, over dinner, right? Getting between places, the casual interaction. I think all those are subtle inputs to how you kind of form a picture around the team, and that matters a lot in any sort of investment decision.
Got it. How has this impacted valuations? Have you all? So two parts to this question. Have you seen a deal for the first time during COVID and gone all the way to closing it, or is it 2 months is probably too small a period of time? Do you see that happening? Do you imagine, or is it viable that you could see a deal today and 3 months down, maybe with 1 or 2 interactions, but very little in-person interaction, you could actually write, a multi-million-dollar check to that company? Do you think that could happen?
I think that's possible, but I think it's more likely if we have known the founder and the company for a while already, right? So we've known the founder 6, 9, 12, 18 months already, and then they're in the market to raise that round. So I think that is more likely. It mitigates some of the risks around not knowing enough about the team and the dynamics. So that is possible. In fact, I'm looking at 1 or 2 deals right now that has that characteristic. I'm in the process of closing an investment right now out of Malaysia as we speak, but that was started about 2 months ago, right before the lockdown. So I think that can still happen, but I would say that if it's a brand new deal, we've not met the founders before, it's going to be a bit harder to get there. Now this is still kind of work in progress for us, right? We're thinking about what exactly are the risks that we're assuming if we were to go ahead? How do we mitigate those risks? Can you put in structures in a deal, tranching or whatever? Can it be driven by, which we don't like, by the way, tranching. We can talk more about why we don't like it. But tranching is usually one aspect of managing that risk, right? You don't put all the money in upfront. And can you do things contractually, right, to sort of mitigate some of these potential risks that you cannot do deal without being on the ground. So it's possible. We haven't done it yet. To your point, it's still a bit early to tell, but we are adapting as we speak.
Could you elaborate a little more about why you don't like tranching? Because I know that some VCs sort of try to drip feed startups, and even though it's in the paperwork, it's not a done deal, even though the ink is dry, right? Because you're trying to get the next tranche, and there are, some targets to meet, and it creates this extra stress from a financing standpoint when there's enough stress on an operational and a growth standpoint. So I'd love to hear your insight into your approach.
You exactly hit it on the head. So, why distract the founder, in terms of all these additional sub-financing, if you would, right, every 6-9 months to get that milestone done and that additional tranche in. Now, tranching can make sense in certain situations, right? For example, if a company's ability to execute the next phase is contingent on regulatory approval and some very clear-cut sort of milestone, then tranching based on that may make sense, right? Because if you don't have a license, you can't operate. So obviously you shouldn't be taking the money anyway. But tranching based on some kind of KPI, revenue target, and all of that, I think doesn't make sense, because if you're investing, particularly at the Series A stage, all these things are in flux, right? Some of these things may be, the key thing is to be able to learn about the business and to be able to then repeatably scale the business. So revenue, while important, may not be the only KPI you need, right? And the KPIs may change, the level may change during that 6 or 9 months. So why artificially, when you are not certain enough about the business yet, put that sort of stress and artificial arbitrary gates up front? I don't think it's fair to the founder. I think, again, to your point, it puts the level of stress to the founders that just, why? It creates all these conflicts, right? All these tension along the way, which I don't think serves any interest for both the founders as well as the investors. That's my view. We are kind of, in principle, not a big fan of tranching. We don't do tranching.
Gotcha. That's great. That's great. So I'm just curious, in terms of your whole portfolio of deals, could you just talk about, some of the deals that are actually looking better now than they did pre-COVID, right?
Yeah.
And some of the deals that are looking worse, right? I'm sure, as great a VC as you might be, you can't not have had some deals that fail, right? I think that's part of being a VC. So could you share some of those thoughts? I mean, only if it's public, because I know some of these companies may be sensitive. So you don't have to share the some of the deals that have failed, but I'll leave it up to you to decide.
Yeah, no, I mean, clearly, failure is almost the default mode for a lot of the investments, right? I mean, our hit rate is typically less than what a decent baseball player would get to, 250 or more, right? So I'll say two things. One about COVID, and obviously pre-COVID and even further back. I think the failure has always been about the people, right? Things that we never anticipate, the stresses between the team, the chemistry between the team, and the dynamics between the team members, the founders level, senior executives, really tearing things apart. At our level, there's a lot of risk that we are underwriting and prepared to underwrite around market traction beyond the initial stages, right? So things sometimes don't work out as well as we thought they should. Not that the company is going to die, but it's not going to get the level of return that we would like to see. So that to us is a failure. And with the COVID situation, obviously, there's a lot more dispersion and separation between what verticals are going to see some traction and what are not going to see. Our travel investments literally seen their revenue gone from millions, tens of millions, to literally zero over a month, right? So when your cost structure is set up to drive $20 million revenue a month to zero, then, and in the foreseeable future as well, the cost structure needs to be quite different, which is what the team had to do, unfortunately and realistically. Then on the other end, you have some of the companies that we have in online collaboration and education. The sort of user base went from 10 million to 50 million in 1 month,
Okay.
And this is a 10-man team that's stressing out to keep the server up and running. Overnight, the orders are coming in, and it's a 10-man team just sitting, in San Francisco and Singapore trying to manage 50 million users from around the world and around the clock. Wow. So that's the extreme good case, and I would say someone like NinjaVan Logistics is somewhat mixed, more positive than not, obviously given the volume and all of that. But they see all verticals, and it's a true reflection of what they see of the economy. They see more people buying, gym equipment, so bikes and dumbbells and heavy stuff, right? They see almost zero fashion, so people don't buy clothes as much, for example. So you see kind of like that sort of reflection of the shift in demand across the different categories depending on the economy. So
Well,
it's a mixed bag, but net, I think, we have been fortunate in terms of our investments so far, and most have turned out okay so far. Yeah.
awesome. I leave with, I want to just sort of not take too much of your time, but also just see how you react to this. Do you think that this is a tremendous opportunity for startups? Because I mean, if you look back 20, 30 years, right? The arrival of the internet, mobile, social, all these big technology shifts. You had the technology shifts happen, but the user behavioral shifts would take much longer to happen, right? Now you have a simultaneous user behavior shift that's happened globally, right? So something's got, do you think that this is probably like the most exciting time to build something for a world that is completely being reconfigured, and the strength of incumbents are essentially irrelevant in, as the structure of the game changes? How are your
Yeah,
thoughts on?
you're spot on, Carlos. I think that's a great insight, right? I mean, all these behavior now has been accelerated, has been forced upon people because they don't have other options, etc. So that clearly is accelerated a lot of value propositions, which was slowly getting adopted, but not fast enough. Like what we're using right now, for example, I don't think was the standard for, for a lot of people, for a lot of businesses. Now it is, right? Video conferencing. Um, my view is, when there's a major shift or major event like what we're seeing right now, it creates several things. It creates new costs, right? New inconveniences that we're going through right now. So these costs has a certain value against that people are willing to pay to overcome that cost. So that's
Got it.
one. The additional risks that people are taking on right now, that people want to avoid, people are putting a value on that. They're willing to pay to get rid of those risks. And when you are able to articulate the value around these costs, additional inconveniences, additional, risks that people need to mitigate, these are potentially huge TAM, huge addressable markets once you are able to sort of get value against that, right? I'm seeing potentially a lot of new interesting TAMs emerging from different spaces that people are addressing right now, precisely of all these additional costs and risks. So I do think that we'll see an interesting corporate company emerging. And for the guys who are going through the last 3 to 4 years of innovation, if they're able to pivot well enough, right, or they're lucky enough to be in the right space at the right time, they're going to come out with this quite strong, quite interesting. So
Okay.
the silver lining is not a bad time to be alive.
Okay. So sorry, Corey, I missed some of the Q&A that's been popping up. So I'm just going to sort of combine these questions into one and let you just react to all of them. But basically, has COVID changed your approach to analysis of companies, deal structuring, valuation, and sectors that you look at?
Yeah. I think I mentioned valuation a bit earlier. It's clearly is softening. People are more flexible. People are also kind of being less ambitious about the round size they're raising. They are willing to raise smaller round sizes, right, just to prove out, the next smaller step, given the difficulty in fundraising. So I think that has correlation to the valuation. The structure underneath that, more convertible notes we're seeing now, right? And I would suspect you will see some term sheets out there that will be more tranching, not likely from us, but other folks may use that. I've heard folks putting in more liquidation preferences, 1.5, even 2x.
Oops.
Yeah. I mean, my first startup in year 2000, just a bit of anecdote, in year 2000, when I did my, in a bunch of guys in Boston, we accepted a term sheet in 2001 of 3x liquidation preference.
Geez, that must have taken a big bite out of the exit.
We were glad to get funding in 2001. So let's put it that way, right? That's
true. That's true. Though you do what the market demands.
It's a reflection of risk, I guess, and so it was what it was. So structuring, I think, in terms of the deal terms, you might see some more aggressive stance on the investor side. I suspect it will get increasingly more if things continue to be on the downward slide with a recession and a L-shaped kind of a recovery. Then you will see investors getting more aggressive. I think it's a fact. There's also likely going to be less liquidity over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dry powder getting used up. Fund managers like ourselves having a harder time raising our new fund.
Yeah.
So it's hard for guys like you to raise fund. It's going to be hard for us to raise fund as well, right? So I think that's
Congratulations, you guys just raised your round though.
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah,
Your
no.
fund, a big fund. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I think those are the things that we will see in the next few period. You know, in terms of the factors that we consider, we still believe in the basic fundamentals. So business still needs to make sense, right? The economics, you know, the likelihood of that scaling, the distribution, you know, the value proposition and all that needs to make sense. Those remain the same for us, the team, the addressable market sizes. But the thing we do ask now is, right, again, is this for growth, genuinely growing and expanding the business? Or is this just to give you the runway to kind of come out of it on the other end, right? So I think that question we ask very have to have a very clear sense in our head around. So I think that's probably what you would see. We've seen more extension rounds, just add on more of the structuring. So guys that just closed a Series A or B round maybe about 6 months ago, 9 months ago, saying, look, we want to raise more money now based on the same terms or even the same valuation. Right. So just make things simple, make things fast. I think speed to capital to execution is what everybody's getting for right now. I see the Q&A, so I just answered one last question there on the investment theme or sectors. The people's lives are getting harder, will get harder now in terms of education is getting difficult. New models may emerge, may have to emerge. Technology that allows for that will have to be there. I think we'll see the opportunity. Healthcare is clearly one. Financing, data around that, all that stuff, we continue to see interesting stuff and opportunity. The workforce is now organized very differently. The automation, the processes, the software to enable that, now I think is getting a lot of interesting conversations around. And we're closing an investment around that space, which we're very excited about. So, yeah, I mean, those are the areas that I see major, plays to emerge.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Corey. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. And I hope we can bug you to have you on again at a subsequent event. But thanks a lot. Have a good rest of the Friday evening.
Thank you, and all the best to all the guys who are pitching today. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. So now I'm just going to move on to the startups presenting, and I'm really excited to have Federico from AXP8, who's with Ipso Healthcare, present his product around I guess mental health based on what I'm reading. Go ahead,
yes.
Federico.
Thank you. I will share the screen now.
So
can you see the screen?
Yeah, you're coming through quite well.
Thank you. So first of all, what is our scope? We want to rethink mental health in Singapore. This is the very short way to say that. Why in Singapore? There is a report of 2018 by the Institute of Mental Health in Singapore that says that 1 in every 7 people in Singapore has mental disorders, experiences mental disorder in their life. And more than 75 of the respondents also experience treatment gap. So in some cases also treatment delay. So the treatment is available but late, by years sometimes. Definitely the current situation means the COVID-19 has not improved the situation. The numbers say that the situation is getting worse, but this is not the reason why we would like to start this venture in Singapore. The real reason is that in Singapore, the fact that you have such a survey example, such a study, is a symptoms of the fact that there is a very high awareness by the institutions themselves. So our scope and our method and goal is not you. Who are we? We are not you. The company I am representing now exists since at least 14 years. I will give you more details. We have been in war zones and in areas where these problems are daily issues, not new. And the methodology we are using is absolutely proven, even scientifically. So the principle on which we base is very simple. Any of us need to have a positive self-perception. And this situation is even aggravated when we have in time of crisis. All of us, we go through times of crisis. And in that case, we need support. But the support we are looking for must be competent, must give answers, and possibly must be accessible. If it's not accessible, imagine on anybody of us, we may find some more gap, and that the situation may be even more difficult. Better than anything is the prevention. So living a healthy life, and also mentally having practices that help us avoid those times of crisis or face them when it's time to face them. The new concept under this methodology is illustrated by the next slide. I hope you see it. Everybody of us, an individual who basically lives in balance, sometimes not balanced, with the four main elements, four main forces. One is the traditional values. When you're born in any place, there is a set of values, behaviors, things to do, things to say that belong to the time before us. These values then get changed over time. This change sometimes is even perceived as non-positive because it's a sort of variations of things that give us safety. Then we live with people, our close people, family, friends, peers, and our work environments. Sometimes when we are not in balance with this, what do? We see there is a box. There's a box of responsible for this. We get out of this box. We go for, we experience some mental health symptoms. There is a diagnosis, there's a treatment, and we go back. The metaphor we can use in this case is that we are living in a place with closed windows, and we get out of the window or the door, we get fresh air, but then we get back. When we get back, unfortunately, we find the same air as before. So the concept we are using, we're not introducing, we are using, we have been using for years in wherever this method has been used, is value-based counseling. Of course, I will not go through the details of the therapy or what we do, but the concept is that you get in the system and you basically interact with the same system that you feel responsible for the problem, but actually you take responsibility and you are empowered. So our counselors basically apply the same concept as before, are easily accessible. They give a positive, they inspire a positive self-perception. They give, of course, competent support, and they try to prevent the problem next time. Credentials, again, we're not new. IPSO healthcare system is already used. IPSO is an association that was founded by my teammate Inge, who is listening now. I will present it later. Years ago, and the system is also proven successful by data. There are researches that will also be published that say that any individual uses the system on random basis recovers resilience, perspective of the future. It's a method which is fast. We'll talk about that later. And recovers functional efficiency. This is very interesting for the work environment because a company, sorry to be a little bit cynical, but company may like people to be efficient even more than happy. So we also have, of course, online tools. This system works online as of today, but doesn't give up the personal touch which is required to take care, of course, of mental health issues. We have done a little bit of competitive analysis. We dive into a swimming pool. We want to know how many people are there. So we have seen that there is an iceberg. The market in Singapore is like an iceberg. And we have estimated, according to studies, we have seen that only 17% of the people basically are going to psychologists, coaches. Out of 100% that would like to go but still don't go, they're not aware of this possibility. Why? Number one, individual social stigma. People don't want to go because it's not cool. Number two, which is the other side of the number one, lack of competence. You go, they don't give you really the relief you need, and then you go back. We have estimated this market as totally 500 million euros, sorry, 600 million dollars, but we speak about that later. Who is competing in this market? Psychologists, registered psychologists, coaches, online system and competitors, and then a plethora of many other self-help tools, system in internet and so on. Customers again would like to go, maybe there are more in numbers into this in this market, but they face the social stigma. They stop themselves sometimes. And new entrants, they don't face that much of competence problem now, because I think this is a market which is still experiencing some lack of competence. It's the mirror image of the social stigma problem. And there are substitutes. Think about substances and other products that maybe we don't want to mention now. So if we map this market into another way, basically we have to understand, if we want to go in this market as Ipso Healthcare, where we want to be. Social stigma will be the border, the barrier between being appealing and not appealing. And competence will be the barrier between being competent and non-competent, of course. We have checked, and by many qualities, we have not done surveys, but this is a totally perceived matrix, so it can be varying in many situations, but that's where we want to be. We want to be in the area where we are competent and appealing. A competent we are, well, years of experience can prove this. And about the appeal, this is what we need to talk and we need to work on, because definitely this is the common problem of everybody. Paradoxically, the more in this field, the more you are competent, think of psychiatrists and so on, the least cool you are. Unique selling points. We are certified. We have already worked somewhere else. We have been successful somewhere else. This is a registered product, a medical product in Germany. We give early help, and we don't pathologize the people we meet. We have fast relief. Our method can guarantee a recovery in 3 to 5 sessions, not in year-long or many years-long therapy. And it is proven, as I said, by the data that both that the patient is basically re-empowered. Why? Because you have well-trained counselors. Speaking about other plus side, we are 24/7 available. We speak always the native language, also in lands which are not Singapore. We have done this already. We have a system of to secure the data of the participant and the customers. We have all a system in place about quality control. There are quality controllers of the counselor. There is a rating system you can use if you use our system. There is a report which is periodical and available, of course, with anonymous report. And we can also direct people to other specialists. Financials, given these premises, basically that how does the market grow? First of all, we have estimated, according to the data that we see, that the market will grow by 4.8% per year the next 5 years, both for the untapped market and the already explored market. Our target in terms of share is not very aggressive. So the financial we have worked on are based on a 10% market share in 5 years. We don't want to be market leader. We want to be market best. Given this market share, our presence should be visible, let's say, by 2025, as I said, as 10% of the market. And given these results, of course, I go very fast now. We will have, from the financial point of view, I would say quite light cost of structure, and so a revenue which is around 70 million in 2025. A funding that we see required would be around 1 million euros and break even in 2 years. Now, a slide that I don't know if you can see. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I'm just finishing here. I'm just ending here. I think it's time for me to. This slide actually, once you know my teammate Inge Misma, probably many of the other slides that I showed you are not required, but of course I have to present them. She has applied this system in, now you see the areas, Afghanistan example, and it's successfully working. She is the European Union's technical advisor for mental health into the Afghan, for the Afghan government, and she has founded IPSO. IPSO already works, as I said. This is me, you already see me. Okay, I worked in Asia for quite a few years, 20 years. Now I am in Italy since 2018. I hope I can come to Singapore very soon. By the way, I'm especially attached to Singapore because I studied my MBA with the Chicago booth. So I thank you here for your interest, and we are open, of course, to the question and answer. I just take the chance to rephrase what I said. What we are looking for is advisor in terms of legal, HR. We are looking for local cooperations in Singapore. We are ready to do also pilot partnerships locally, giving also some time for free this service. So that's what I had to say. And if there are questions, we're here. Thank you very much for your attention and for your opportunity.
Thank you so much, Federico.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Are you, is your company based registered in Singapore by any chance, or?
No. This is I call it company, but it's just it's not existing in Singapore. It is existing elsewhere.
Do you intend to register in Singapore? Because there are like lots of these test bedding opportunities for Singapore companies. So I just wanted to check if that's an intention.
Yeah, and that's why we are aiming at Singapore, because I think this is the right ground to develop these ideas. Yeah.
Got it. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go to some of the Q&A questions.
Yes.
I have one here that's basically, is this sort of advice that you're offering regulated by any chance by health authorities? Could you highlight?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. What advice?
So part of this involves communicating with people that need mental health support, right?
Yes.
Is that like regulated medical advice, or can it be done? But I mean, I'm just curious how that works.
The people who are working for us are trained people by our company, and they are our company is licensed. So if it is a matter of competence, then we can go through the details of how we develop this program. But
got it. No, actually, my question was not really about a matter of competence, but like, let's say you want to practice medicine in Singapore, you need to have a Singapore medical license, right? So I think people are quite interested in understanding, is this like a regulated activity in Singapore or in Italy? And if so, how has that changed during the whole COVID situation?
It is regulated, of course, in Germany, Italy, or wherever this company has already operated. And as I told you, example, in Germany, it is licensed. So if there is a requirement of licensing, also this product, this service that we provide in Singapore, according to the local regulations, I think we are ready to apply and to perform and to get the license, hopefully.
Got it. And you're already doing this in your home market in Italy and Germany. Is
Germany,
that it?
Germany, not in Italy. Germany.
Germany.
And Afghanistan.
And how's the traction in those markets?
Well, in Afghanistan, unfortunately, I would say it's good somehow, unfortunately, because it's of course, a place that requires a lot of help. Okay, what we are talking about that this system has been developed not for business but for charity. So the attractions that you call is not a market, is an unpleasant situation of war zones and areas where this system helps a lot of people. So attraction is unfortunately good in that area. And in Germany, the product has been for the first time exported, let's say, out of a frontier, a place, a war zone, to a peaceful place.
Got it. Got it. So are you saying that you're
sorry to jump in, but Inge wants to maybe also add something to that. Federico, is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Inge is absolutely.
You can speak.
So, well, first of all, hello to everybody. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you, dear Federico, for your good presentation. I just wanted to say the value-based counseling is a method I developed, and we evaluated in 2 randomized controlled studies, and it has normally a time of sessions between.
Hello? I think we lost Inge.
Because it says, okay, good. So what it is in Germany, in the moment, we are certifying it as a German medical product. We are operating not only in Afghanistan as a humanitarian organization with about 60,000 talks online and face-to-face worldwide in the last year. We have incoming calls from basically all over the world in Germany from our online system. We are available in the moment in 16 languages, and we have just founded Ipso Healthcare as a for-profit organization, which has more or less the purpose to offer these services in different countries on a more, let's say, business-like level, and with the aim that the revenues of this company will then support the humanitarian business, so that we have some kind of sustainability. So all questions you have regarding the approach or anything of it are welcomed. As Federico said, it is really an approach which is non-stigmatizing and which helps people to overcome quickly any feeling of victimization, and has the aim to regain a sense of empowerment over one's own lives according to one's own values, and to become self-efficient relatively quickly. We have a database of 300,000 cases, and we can say, in line with the studies we had so far, that in 70% we have significant improvement of symptoms and functionality.
Got it. So I'm seeing a whole bunch of questions, but we have to move on to the next one. But let me just leave with let me just put some of these questions together so you can answer them in one go. I think there's an interest in understanding whether the funding will be used purely for Singapore, and whether you intend to set up your own infrastructure, counselors, clinics, etc., in different markets, or you intend to partner with them. Do you intend to own that model in entirety, or it's like some sort of partnership model using your system? And would you potentially, veer into the B2B space, by providing these services to companies that want to support their employees?
I don't know if you want to answer, Inge, but I just introduced the answer. The short answer is yes.
Yes.
Individuals and organizations. We think that individual, we can get to the organization, vice versa. So the short answer is yes. Then depends on what business, but we have not opened the page of mental health at work, but it's more and more, evident that also companies have to take. I give you a hint before when I said that it helps to recover efficiency.
Yeah.
That's what company wants.
Got it.
So,
And especially when you have work from home, the lines are blurring between the company and home and personal life, right?
Yeah.
I've been told that some people don't have a break for lunch because, you know, because they're just working from like 8 in the morning to 8 at night, even though they're home.
Yeah.
Super. So, you know, thank you so much, Federico. Thank you, Inge, for presenting to us. And I hope we'll stay in touch with you and connect again shortly. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So now I'd like to move on to our next guest, Andrew from Mesh Bio. Really interested in hearing what he has to say, and it would be awesome if he could get spotlighted. And he is. Super.
Great. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Carlos?
Perfect. You're coming through, Andrew. Awesome.
Hey, fantastic. I was actually with AXP18 and actually deferred to start Mesh Bio. So it's a privilege to present to everyone today. So at Mesh Bio, we are delivering predictive analytics solutions to transform healthcare delivery, right? So we know that human metabolic disease is a huge problem. There are almost 18 million deaths a year from heart disease, and diabetes is costing us almost $1 trillion, right? And much of this is due to complications like heart and kidney failure. Southeast Asia in particular is facing a health crisis. Obesity in Malaysia, in Singapore, Health Promotion Board is driving the war against diabetes. And Indonesia is projected to spend $3 trillion on addressing chronic diseases. And most of our doctors, to be honest, are actually just GPs, right? They don't have that specialist training in cardiology or endocrinology, and they are struggling to manage the increasingly complex patient cases. So like 1 minute, they could be seeing a child with a cough and cold. The next patient could be an auntie with diabetes or hypertension, or uncle with early heart disease. And these GPs, to be honest, they don't have the time to read the latest medical science papers and struggle to determine the most effective therapies for these patients. And as I mentioned, this increasing incidence of chronic diseases correspondingly increases complexity, right? I mentioned earlier that doctors are struggling because medical knowledge is doubling every 72 days. At the same time, we have a lack of trust and engagement amongst patients, right? Seeking a better healthcare experience, and where do they go? Dr. Google. In the face of increasing payouts from these diseases, the payers are pressuring health systems to deliver more cost-effective care. So we're trying to solve these problems at Mesh Bio, right? We're a digital health startup providing cloud-based analytics solutions to doctors and healthcare providers, and these can be seamlessly integrated into electronic health record systems, really to enable better disease diagnosis and management. We're building on the learnings from successful digital health companies such as Flatiron and delivering solutions that address the urgent problem of cardiometabolic disease. My co-founders and I have known each other for 15, 20 years. We have extensive experience in diagnostics, clinical software development, and healthcare management. So before Mesh Bio, I was with ClearBridge Health as the Chief Operating Officer of the subsidiary, Biolytics, where I led the development of cutting-edge cancer diagnostics. And then bringing ClearBridge Health to IPO. Arsen, my co-founder, he spent 8 years at the Bioinformatics Institute in computational and systems biology research, after which he moved into clinical software development for some of the largest labs in Singapore and China. Melvin was the co-founder of OneCare and grew that medical group from 4 clinics to 16 clinics in 4 years, and is now the COO of Gleneagles Hospital in Singapore. And our advisors, I see Adrian is here today, are global experts in digital health, bioinformatics, and the biochemistry of aging. So we have deep expertise in analyzing complex, multidimensional healthcare data, such as biochemistry, genomics, and imaging, and building predictive models that give us insights into a patient's health state so that our solutions can address challenges in care delivery. Our solution is Dara, a comprehensive health analytics engine that draws in all diverse types of healthcare data in a meaningful, contextual way to automate the structuring and synthesis of health insights. We've built in the best clinical best practices, guidelines, and holistic patient assessments so that doctors can easily leverage the knowledge of the global community of healthcare providers. Our solution delivers a patient-centric visual report that helps doctors counsel patients, improves patient understanding and engagement. So for instance, one segment that we serve is primary care, where Dara's automation speeds up the capturing, structuring, and assessment of patients, and leveraging gold standard clinical risk assessment with best practice clinical guidelines. The analytics and visualization is able to quantify the key contributors to a patient's disease risk. And these key areas that care providers need to focus on in order to deliver a targeted, personalized care plan, and presents this information in a way that is easy for patients to understand how their life choices today are going to impact their health future. The doctor is then able to prioritize the most effective intervention personalized to this patient, all in a data-driven manner. Dara automates holistic patient assessment so that doctors can focus on care delivery and patient interaction, not punching numbers on their computer screen. This increases the quality of care delivery. Our solutions address what patients really care about, which is fundamentally, am I healthy or am I sick? If I'm sick, what is the doctor going to do for me? Data visualization increases doctor-patient engagement and brings patients from a place of education to understanding and health ownership. We increase patient retention for the doctor, and by enabling patients to better understand their health trajectories, they are more willing to sign on to follow-on intervention programs. This clinical decision support reduces uncertainty in care delivery and increases the effectiveness of interventions, improving patient outcomes and reducing chronic disease risk, keeping payers happy. So now is the right time for digital health with the challenges we're facing from metabolic diseases. Doctors are looking for solutions that can help them in care delivery. At the same time, there is an increasing adoption of electronic health records and the digitization of medical information, lending itself well to the adoption of predictive analytics solutions such as ours, and paving the way for value-based healthcare. With a fast-moving wave of healthcare digitalization, the providers are readily adopting analytics solutions. The World Economic Forum projected that this digital health wave will transform the lives of millions in Asia. Our vision is to start with addressing the needs of primary care, as I mentioned, where in Singapore, 60% of working adults, or almost 3 million people, go through annual screening. Through holistic assessment, doctors are better able to address underdiagnosed diseases such as heart failure. And this paves the way for us to expand into specialist care and the needs of these chronic disease patients. Our solutions are delivered through a cloud-based SaaS model. Healthcare providers pay for each patient assessment report or on a long-term subscription. So we have a number of these now to our analytics service. We started MeshBio in mid-2018 and established collaborations with some of the top clinical institutions in Singapore. Dara was launched with early adopters just under a year ago, after which we were invited by Roche Diagnostics as the first Asian startup to join their exclusive digital health acceleration program. We are now revenue generating, and Dara has been adopted by providers and used to screen almost 4,000 patients. Most recently, we were also awarded the Startup SG Tech Grant by Enterprise Singapore to further develop our predictive analytics technology with Tan Tock Seng Hospital for chronic disease patient management. Now, in the current COVID-19 pandemic, health systems are looking for solutions that can help with patient care, especially patients that develop severe disease, such as acute respiratory distress. We now know that patients with underlying chronic diseases, such as diabetes, heart failure, and hypertension, are significantly affected by the infection, increasing the risk of death. In the long term, Dara addresses the chronic diseases, but right now, our specialized disease models could predict the clinical course of COVID-19 patients and has the potential to help providers by supporting better clinical decision-making in really a dynamic, stressful situation, enabling hospital administrators to prioritize resources and supporting policy making as we tackle this crisis. Together with our collaborator, the Bioinformatics Institute, we have obtained support from NCID, SingHealth, and one of the hospitals in NHS in the UK for this opportunity. The COVID-19 pandemic is an example of an acute situation where our predictive analytics technology is able to add value to the needs of healthcare providers. In summary, healthcare is facing challenges from increasing complexity, driving up costs and inefficiencies in care delivery. Our solutions create value for healthcare providers, enabling more efficient and informed clinical decisions. So we are raising our seed round now to drive the delivery of our solutions and are seeking strategic partners to support our mission and our journey. Mesh Bio will transform care delivery through our predictive analytics solutions in order to really improve patient outcomes and deliver a better quality of life. My email is here, and I look forward to connecting with all of you. Many thanks.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Really appreciate that. It was a great presentation. Let me just see let me just get to some of the questions. So I have a question from Arun here. The quality of the input data is key. So how challenging has it been to get timely quality data for the analytics?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, we integrate directly into the health IT systems. So there are starting to be more and more standardized data transfer protocols. So in certain cases where we are more fully integrated, we literally get a direct data feed from the clinical laboratory that is performing the diagnostic tests. In places where this has been challenging, and of course we know that healthcare data can be quite complex and unstructured, we help to structure upfront, right? So for instance, we structure the data for the nurses to input when they see the patients, for the doctors to input. So we have not just an analytic solution on the back end, but deployed front end to structure the data at point of collection.
Awesome, awesome. But does this mean there's a little bit of customization for each client that you need to do, to like a data cleaning bit that can be sometimes quite time consuming, right? It doesn't scale easily. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's a common challenge that's faced by B2B companies. I mean, if you think about adopting or implementing Salesforce in an organization, right? Yeah. So I would say that a large extent of our core solution is reproducible across organizations. Of course, there are going to be some differences from a healthcare provider to healthcare provider, like the drugs that they prefer to use, like the brand name of the drugs, or the labs that they're currently using, or the instruments that are performing these diagnostics. So we have catered for them through the APIs that we have built. And because of my background in clinical diagnostics, Melvin and Arsen, we have a lot of experience. We understand that this complexity and variation, the heterogeneity in, from healthcare provider to healthcare provider is the reality of trying to serve this industry. And we built this and prepared for this from day one.
Super. So your customers would be like hospital networks and GPs, and so, but not direct, not patients directly, right?
Right now, we do not serve direct to patients or consumers. Our customers are clinic chains, as you mentioned, Carlos, clinic chains, medical groups, or hospitals.
Super, super. Could you add some clarity in terms of how much funding you're seeking or at this point in time? Yeah.
So we're in discussions, pretty late stage discussions with a couple of VCs who are interested to lead our round. Our objective is never about just the capital, right? So this round, we are looking to raise US $2 million, most of which has already been spoken for. But what's most important to us is having good partners, right? Because we're an early stage company, right? It's people who believe in our mission and believe that in the potential of our solutions and our technology to transform healthcare, and can provide us strategic advice, strategic connections, so that we can enter into, to be honest, a challenging market. I mean, everyone knows that healthcare is not something that one can wade into without experience.
Exactly, exactly. And do you think this whole, there's been a lot of data privacy issues that have reached the forefront. Does that impact you in any way?
Oh, I mean, totally. When I was running a clinical lab, we were so cautious in terms of consenting, data privacy, ensuring that every data transfer has secure protocols in place. What happens during intercept? Is the data encrypted? So yes, I mean, if you're delivering solutions, data solutions to healthcare providers, cybersecurity encryption, this info security, this is paramount, right? I mean, you have to do, this is a given in order to be trusted by providers. Yeah.
Got it. And you said, so you're raising a 2 million round right now. And you said some part of that is already taken up. So what's the space there? And if you don't want to answer it on, publicly, that's fine. But like, what is the equity, or what's the deal structure, if you're willing to share that at this time?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, we are in pretty late stage discussions with a couple of VCs who, I guess, sector focus on med tech and health tech, right?
Yeah.
So, as you know, with this kind of deals is very much a relationship building exercise, and also then building out the terms that follow-on investors can then join in with the round. So, I mean, I know it doesn't answer the question very much, but as you can expect, it's very much due to down to the interactions and negotiations with the lead investors.
Sure. Do you have any like financials that you could share, or ballparks, or at this time?
Yeah, so we are revenue generating. We target to be driving towards a million, 2 million ARR in a couple of years' time, right? So I would say that our revenue is early stage, mainly early adopters, but it's certainly picking up. And I guess we're very heartened by the fact that in spite of the circuit breaker and COVID-19 situation, we have been engaging with several healthcare providers and actually managed to close out subscription contracts in spite of the current situation. So that's been very encouraging for all of us and the team as well, right?
Cool. So you don't. So right now, are you like 50% on that way, or 20% on your target? I'm just trying to make sure that that I don't miss an answer on an ARR front, or like in terms of where are you now? Would you be able to share that?
Yeah, well, I kind of don't disclose our current financial performance, right? I'm sure
no
you can
problem.
understand.
No problem.
Yeah, but I think we're on our way there.
Okay. What about, willingness to pay? So since this is B2B, so you're saying that the healthcare providers would potentially pay for this, right?
And they do.
But would GPs also pay? No, GPs don't pay. Or would GPs pay?
So we create value on several fronts, right? So for the organization, we, as I mentioned, our analytics solutions ensures quality of care delivery. So if you can call it a QA solution to ensure that the patient is getting the best consistent experience across the medical group, regardless of, I guess, the experience or expertise of our clinicians, because we support that decision making, right? At the same time, that automation is certainly delivering value or creating value for our customers by reducing the number of man hours it takes to process and manage complex healthcare data, right? To be honest, a lot of processes in healthcare now are manual, and because we understand the clinical workflows along bringing a patient through their care journey, we can help to automate a lot of this. And actually, the automation itself is not just about saving man hours, right? It also reduces human error and the recovery time when, to be honest, it's not uncommon in healthcare where certain errors have been made and then the organization has to go into recovery mode. So we reduce error and increase quality of care delivery. So, and because of these metrics, right? And these are certainly metrics that we always discuss with our customers, because obviously this is their business, right? That's why because we understand it, they have been willing to pay.
Got it. So let me just tie up the last 3 questions all in one go, and you can just address what you'd like to. One is, how do you evaluate the success of your prediction tools? Because I guess that's pretty critical if that's your core business. And in turn, and then how does that feed into your revenue model in terms, is it success based? Is it dollars per customer? Is it, per module? And finally, could you tell us a little bit about your target markets in this space and how the competitive environment looks in this area? Yeah.
There's a lot of diverse questions, but I'll try to take them one by one. So yeah, so certainly the models have to be validated. We build our models based on peer-reviewed, established clinical studies, and certainly we do a lot of backtesting, even with the providers' historical healthcare data that they share with us as part of the implementation, or even the customer acquisition process, right? And maybe the markets that we serve right now is Singapore mainly, and we've started to enter into Malaysia and Indonesia. So we've had some discussions in Indonesia already, but mainly the patients that we have been able to serve is Singapore and Malaysia. From our revenue model perspective, it's a hybrid, right? So typically providers start with per report assessment. So if there are 1,000 people coming in for health screening, or 1,000 chronic disease patients, we then charge like per assessment, right? And then as they kind of get comfortable and really like what we're doing for them, then they move on to a long-term subscription model, right? Where the solution would be adopted for every patient that comes in. And we signed up a couple of these on multi-year annual subscriptions.
Super. So thank you so much, Andrew. And I hope we get to see you and keep in touch in terms of your progress as things go along. But it's been delightful having you. So really,
yeah, it's been a privilege. And, thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much. I'd also like to let the audience know that I'm really sorry that we've overshot a bit.
Yeah, sorry to the last presenter.
No, you're not the last one. We have one more. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'd like to I'd like to invite Brian Tay from Premium House Tutor, and if the spotlight could go on him, that would be super. Brian, welcome.
Hi. Nice to meet everyone.
Hi. Thanks, Brian, for joining.
Yeah. Okay.
I think your video is a little okay now. I think it's a lot. Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Super. Thank you.
Okay. So today I'm here to represent my company, Premium House Tutor. Okay. What we aim to do is to really bring tuition to the next level in the Southeast Asian region. Okay. So without further ado, let me just go straight into the presentation. Okay. So a bit more about the tuition industry, as I think, according to Straits Times, I think you all know that even with COVID-19 and even with the pandemic, I think the demand for education is still there, and it's even more important now. According to Straits Times, early this year, the tuition industry is worth about 1.4 billion in Singapore, and there are about 400 tuition centers in Singapore. And across the entire Southeast Asian region, the tuition industry is estimated to be worth more than 100 billion. Okay, so that's a bit about the background of the industry. Okay, next I would like to talk about what are some of the current, I would say, inefficiencies of the tuition system in Singapore and regionally. Okay, number one is actually because of a lack, most tuition platforms do not have a lot of consolidated information because it's a lot of smaller players. So one thing is that a lot of tuition platforms, there's no direct reviews of each tutor. So it's very difficult for parents to make informed choices. Because of how the whole tuition platform works, a lot of tuition matching platforms don't allow parents to communicate directly with the tutors. Okay, so that is one issue that is faced by most tuition platforms in Singapore. Okay, another issue with many tuition platforms is there's no model built in to ensure that the customers keep coming back to them. Okay, and lastly, the two most important ones that I would like to highlight in this presentation are that as I think regionally, Singapore is very famous for our quality of education. A lot of people want to come to Singapore and study. We get inquiries all the time on that. And generally in Southeast Asia, Singapore is recognized as one of the leading education hubs. But we don't really, most foreign clients don't have enough access to get a Singapore tutor, find out what is it all about. Okay. Okay, hang on, are the slides displaying properly?
I think we can see the first slide. I don't know if you, I don't know, it's stuck on my screen. Calvin, is it working for you?
No, so only the first slide.
Okay, let me just share my whole. Is it working now?
Yeah, we can see the inefficiencies slide.
Yeah. Okay. So lastly is that there are also, I mean, of course, because of the whole COVID-19 situation, right now there's a shift of education towards home-based learning and online learning. Okay, so that is something that, you know, our company is also trying to manage, and we are trying to tap on this new, we're trying to pivot to capture this new demographic. Okay, so what we have is, we have tutors, we have more than 8,000 tutors and more than 10,000 parents who are our existing customers. Okay, so we offer tutors for all subjects, English, math, science, language, and humanities. Okay, a bit more about us and why we decided to start this company. I am Brian is myself, so I'm a teacher, I'm a tutor myself. I'm actually teaching at an international school for business and economics. And my partner and my co-founder is Saravanan. So he has also been in the education industry for 15 years. So as tutors ourselves, we have a lot of first-hand interaction with students and parents. And we saw, so what happened was that for myself, I used to teach and own a tuition center, but I felt that the online model is more scalable and is where the future is going towards. Okay, so what we want to provide is not just a matching service, okay, but as tutors ourselves, we want to be able to advise and help our clients, we don't advise every client, have as much tuition as possible. We believe in finding the right amount of help for your student based on the weaker subject and what your student needs, what each student needs help with. Okay, and our team is actually a total of 8 people. So on top of the 4 listed here, we have 4 other part-time admin staff. So they basically do more administrative work like digital marketing, accounting, so on and so forth. Okay, more about our companies in terms of the core product, where we are basically matching parents and clients. So we connect them. Okay, we do both online and face-to-face lessons for both individuals and groups of students. Okay, currently on our database itself, we have more than 10,000 tutors. Okay, so we have already, this is on our local database. Out of this 10,000 tutors, more than 5,000 of them have fully verified profiles with all their certificates, and we actually have a team to check and make sure that, they have all the original copies submitted to us. And through our successful matching over the last 2 years, more than 3,000 of them, have some reviews from parents, which we also collect and we are able to display on our platform. Okay, one thing about us is that unlike many other competitors who maybe out of every 2 inquiries, maybe they convert 1 or 2 inquiries, we have 50% conversion rates, which means that out of every 10 parents who are looking for tutors through our platform, historically, we make sure that 5 of them are able to find tutors. And out of them, 90% are actually happy with the tutor assigned, because we don't just forward the profiles, we make sure that, we have a screening process where we make sure that what we are sending is, number one is, we want to make sure she has a good track record with previous parents. Okay. Number 2 is that we want to make sure that, we are sending the parent what they are looking for, not something that's over their budget, not somebody that's not qualified enough. Okay, so a lot of this is through, we have a semi-automated model, we have a Telegram bot, we have a inbuilt filtering system, okay, but some of it is done manually also as of this moment. Okay, another thing I'd like to highlight is that we don't just provide tutors for academic subjects. We also provide tutors for, in line with, what Singapore education system wants. They want a more holistic education now. We are, when I talk about all the tutors that we have also have music teachers. We also have coding teachers. We even have language teachers, like for example, if you want to learn Japanese, everything can be found through our platform. Okay, and I mentioned previously that I think a lot of platforms, newer platforms, find it hard to get recurring income from their customers. For us, we have developed a remarketing marketing plan. And what we did is that right now, more than 30% of our clients come back to us after 3 months. So they can come back to us for another subject. Or for example, maybe what we do is we give them promotion. So if their kid is learning maybe primary level Chinese, what we do is we tell the parent, okay, if your kid wants to learn piano as well, you know, or if you yourself are interested in learning another language, we can provide it as well. Okay, so these are the full list of services that are currently already provided on our platform. We work with more than 20 schools across Singapore, 20 tuition centers, international schools, and enrichment centers to provide both students and tutors. So when we provide students, we charge a referral fee, and when we provide tutors, it's the same. Okay, we also have licensee systems where that is what we offer individuals or other companies who want to set up their own tutoring platform. So right now we have already sold a master franchise into India, okay, and we are also in talks with somebody in Indonesia to bring our model over there. I think in line with the whole, so what happened since last month was, actually before this whole pandemic happened, the demand for online tuition was not that strong. But what happened last month was we realized that more and more, especially in Singapore, people are looking at online tuition as a viable alternative to face-to-face lessons. So we have successfully pivoted into that area. What we are offering right now is we are offering both online private lessons, and we also offer online group lessons. So for these online group lessons, we are very picky about which are the tutors that we select to conduct these lessons. So only those who have met a certain track record with all our parents are able to be the teachers for these classes. So these are our like premier online group video lessons. And for this, we earn a recurring income through all classes conducted. So that is our revenue model. Okay. And very importantly, our online messaging platform also allows parents and tutors to talk to each other directly. Unlike many of our competitors, which actually don't have that function because maybe they are afraid that their commissions will be undercut. But actually, we have a system where we can see what they are chatting with each other, okay, and we allow them to communicate with each other so that the match is, you know, everything goes even more smoothly. Okay, so this is just a brief comparison of what we offer compared to our competitors. How we are currently reaching out to our target demographic. We have been in this industry for about 3 to 4 years. We actively advertise on both search and Google ads, Facebook ads, social media advertising. Okay, as I mentioned, we have a remarketing system through email campaigns. We offer vouchers, e-vouchers to all our customers. Okay, and we have a referral program in place. So we target currently both B2B and B2C. Okay, so this is about our pricing mechanism to the different people. So number one is we have online group lessons, so we earn a recurring amount from that. We have the part where we match tutors and parents. So we receive about 500 inquiries to 600 inquiries every month currently. Okay, and for each inquiry, each successful conversion, which is about 50% of that, we earn a one-time payment of about 240 to 600 per transaction. Okay, and we also supply teachers and students to tuition and enrichment centers. Okay, and lastly, we have successfully sold 10 licensees in Singapore, and we have sold master franchises to Malaysia and India. Okay, historically, we have managed to grow by 4 times year on year. So right now, our revenue is on track to hit about 600K this year. Okay, last year we were doing a quarter of that. So this is what we want to continue achieving, and what we with funding we want to boost the growth rate and go to the next level. Our go-to-market plan, as mentioned, we are already in India, Indonesia. So over there, we are helping our franchises set up their marketing, helping them get tutors, helping them get students, and sharing with them our marketing expertise. Okay, we are planning to expand into other countries in the Southeast Asian region on a 6-month basis. And why we are looking for funding here is because we really want to bring what we offer and to the next level in terms of, firstly, we want to improve on our online digital classroom system. Currently, we are looking at a partnership with Startup Agora. Okay, we are also utilizing, of course, Zoom, and we talk to other partners like Kudi. So we want to grow that front further because right now there's a growing demand for online tuition classes. And what we really want to do is we want to bring Singapore education out to the Southeast Asian market region. Another thing that we want to do is, of course, we want to increase the market share. We think that we are able to increase our revenue by 4 times year on year. Okay, and we all want to infuse, in order to further improve our matching system, okay, we want to implement artificial intelligence and blockchain technologies. So this is what we have achieved up to date. We were able to, through optimization of our marketing, we were able to see a 50% reduction in our cost per acquisition. We mentioned we acquire about 500 to 600 new inquiries every month, and our conversion rate is 50%. With funding, we project that we are able to grow by 4 times year on year, which is what we are currently achieving. So we have the historical data to actually back that up. Okay, so what we are looking at currently is 800,000 for a 20% stake in our company. Okay, so I would like to end it off, and this is a picture of us with our licensees in our office. So I would like to end off, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity for this presentation.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate it. Just a couple of questions. So yours is it a B2B model where you serve other tuition centers, or is it, or do you sort of, are the tutors employees of your center?
The tutors are freelancers. So the tutors are not our employees; they are freelancers. So we send them to. We don't just do B2B; we do both B2B and B2C. So currently, about 70% of our revenue comes from B2C, and the other 30% comes from B2B. So what we do is we collect a referral card from the tutors for each successful job that we find for them.
Okay, so it's a bit like a marketplace where people select their tutors and then they use your software. Is that it?
Correct.
And your software is visually a bit like a Zoom customized version, or you said
Correct.
Agora?
You see all the tutor profiles. You know, you can see all the you can see all the tutor profiles. You can see all the information of the tutors, whether they are certified, and their track record and their reviews from other parents.
Got it. So this is so that's like the marketplace software, but not the. So you'll build the marketplace software, but not the actual tutoring software, and that you'll use Zoom and other technologies for. Is that correct?
Correct.
Awesome. Very interesting. But you all plan on building that technology as well? Is that what you're saying? Like,
correct. So right now we have a marketplace software. We also have our inbuilt. We have a Telegram bot. Our matching. So how we decide who do we send? So for example, an inquiry comes in. Sometimes we get up to like 100 tutors who are interested in the particular inquiry. So what we do is we have a system, a semi-automated system, where we are able to filter out the best 3 matches and we send it to you.
Got it. And when you say you franchise, what exactly are you franchising? Like someone gets your software and they set it up on their system, this marketplace software?
So basically what we sold to India so far is they get our marketplace, they get our, we teach them how to do the matching, okay? And what we do is we create a separate website for them that is, so for example, House Tutor, there's a website called House Tutor India. Okay, so it is like a clone of the Singaporean counterpart, but we customize it according to that country's cultures. You know, for example, I think over there they need to submit a separate document to be certified as a tutor. Okay, so what we do is we customize our platform for another country.
Got it. Got it. So how big is the biggest player, in this particular segment globally or regionally? And what's your
why are looking at funding, because to be honest, locally I think we are growing. Okay, and we are profitable locally. Okay, but what we really are looking at when it comes to funding is we are looking at somebody to bring us, because I mentioned, I think there's a missing market in the sense that I think regionally there's no player that is bringing, we receive a lot of demand. So we advertise in like Indonesia or Malaysia, right? And we receive demand and say, hey, I'm looking at I want a tutor from Singapore because I heard so much about your education system, and everything like that. And I want somebody qualified, even a Singaporean undergrad, or especially people are willing to pay top dollar for a Singapore trained teacher. Like for me, myself, the international school I'm teaching in is an Indonesian international school. It's not a Singapore international school. So we receive inquiries like that all the time. But the thing about it is that we are very experienced locally, but we need somebody to bring us to the next level. We can utilize technology, and most important, somebody with regional knowledge to really, we want to be the biggest player in the region. And right now there isn't such a player where they are bringing Singapore education to Southeast Asia, and that is what we want to do.
Got it. I think Baiju has been involved in the video on demand type of structure, and there's this big explosion of live teaching recently. So
correct. I mean,
it seems really interesting. Sorry?
They are looking to tap on the explosion of live video teaching. That's really what we are trying to do.
Super. I've been looking at this space also, so let's try to connect offline on that. But, I didn't quite understand, I have to confess, I didn't quite understand how AI and blockchain tech works in this whole system. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
For example, if let's say you received inquiry for tutor, like I mentioned, right? 100 applicants. So for example, I don't know whether you are familiar with like Upwork or other platforms, right? You can post a job there, you get 100 applicants. And what you don't want to see as a customer is you don't want to see 100 applicants. You want to know who are the best, applicants. You want to know who are the 3 best tutors that suit your requirements. And it's a complex requirement. It's not just, the most expensive tutor or the best tutor track record, because what we need to do is we need to find a good fit between the budget, we need to find a good fit between the track record, we need to find a good fit between the available timings, there's so many factors to factor in, right? And that is where we want AI and, blockchain to come in. We want AI to make that whole matching process easier, save on cost, because right now we are doing that semi-automated, as I mentioned. We have 3 manpower in the office, they are basically looking through that, and then they are trying to send out the best tutors based on intuition and based on our past experiences. But what we really want to do is to smoothen the process, reduce the time. I forgot to mention, we pride ourselves on turnaround time. So if you submit an inquiry today for a teacher, we normally can get back to you within 3 to 6 hours with 3 or 4 options for you to choose from. And these people, unlike other platforms where you click on the profile, they might not be available. If we send you the profile, and whether it's by WhatsApp or by our inbuilt messaging system, it means that the teacher will be available. Okay, so what we really want to do is we have an AI that it removes all this manual work.
Do you? I mean, I've heard AI and blockchain used in a lot of pitches, but do you really I've used Upwork, I've used Airbnb. And it's really not an AI problem, right? It's about the reviews, it's about the ratings, it's about the response time. Airbnb will kick out a host if they don't respond within 24 hours to a potential customer, because that's a bad experience and it gives Airbnb a bad name. Do you think you might be over complicating your system by trying to include AI? I mean, AI can be used in any system, but do you think it's a bit overdone for your particular model in the near term?
No, like I said, we're taking a step by step. What we do want to know is that we want to automate some part of our matching process. Okay, it doesn't necessarily has to be through AI or blockchain. What we want to do is to make the user process as seamless as possible, and we want to get we want to make it easy. You know, we don't want to make it. I think a lot of the problem with a lot of matching platforms is it's really hard to use. You know, you submit inquiry, you click here, click there, and you don't even know whether there's somebody there, you know, replying to you, that kind of thing or not. And what we really throughout the past 3 years, what I really have been focusing on is keep it simple. You know, keep the whole process short and sweet. You know, let the lesson get started, and that is what we are focusing on, and delivering the best tutor, okay, in the shortest amount of time.
So what I like about what you're doing is that, you know, what you're trying to do essentially is like a managed marketplace, right? Because in a marketplace, in a normal marketplace, it becomes very difficult to control the quality of the people, especially in the early stages when you have like 1,000 or 5,000 tutors on your platform, and all of them have a certain number of ratings. Then it's very easy to do on an automated basis. You can always make sure that someone's there. But in the early days, you know, you need to sort of hand pick and select and, you know, manually match. So I think that's really interesting to sort of control the user experience. Is there, you know, there's this frequent problem, like you talked about, that you allow your customers to interact with the tutors. How do you deal with, you know, the tutor building a relationship directly with the parent, right? Because, you know, Airbnb, like Uber works because, you know, even if I have the phone number of the taxi driver, if he's like in a different location, he's not going to just drive and come back and pick me up, right? But you know, there was this other company, I can't remember what it was, but they were helping with domestic helpers, right? Helping people find domestic helpers on an hourly basis. And what happened is people were using it to try out and select part-time workers. But once they found someone they liked, they had a personal relationship and they'd engage with them directly, bypassing the system. So how do you build stickiness into that system and prevent that direct engagement?
We have a two-pronged model to settle this. Okay, so let me share with you. Number one thing is that our referral fee is upfront referral fee, meaning that what we do currently, the model is we are charging 50% of the first month. So after that, the relationship is directly between the parent and the tutor. Those are for the one-to-one matching. For group classes, then we have a different revenue model, because for group classes, what we do is we monitor everything very closely, because we have 500 inquiries a month, right? So those that go into our group classes, then we monitor the chat conversations, we make them, everything must be done through our, our ecosystem. But for those one-to-one, those that are looking for one-to-one, we collect upfront fee and we leave it to them to manage. And the thing about it is why we allow parents to talk to tutors. Initially, I can tell you we didn't allow that. But as we scaled up, what we find was that there are some teachers who are taking up to 10 jobs from us, 10 tuition assignments. Maybe every month they're taking 1 or 2 tuition assignments from us, correct? And what they don't want to be is to be caught in a situation where they are trying to undercut our platform. Because the moment we catch that, we tell them that if you try to undercut our platform, we are not allowing you to find any more jobs through our database. So we have a regulate, and we write that very clearly in our terms and conditions. We will allow you to talk to a teacher. You can do whatever you want, you can share whatever you want. But the moment, because we have access to all their chat logs, right? The moment we see there's evidence that you are trying to privately communicate, undercut our platform, you are not allowed to register anymore. And since, we verify their identity and everything, it's honestly, it is like economics, right? Game theory. You are not going to cheat if you find that your future source of jobs is not there anymore. So that is how we have mitigated the problem. And that is why we believe very strongly in scaling this model. That is why, even though we are doing, I would say, decently well, and I would say, I'm heartened to announce that, to say that even during this whole pandemic, we are still getting some sort of revenue and inquiries, especially for online tuition. What we really want to do is to leverage on economies of scale. Because I think the bigger we grow, the more efficiencies we can build into the system.
Got it. Thank you so much. That was really interesting. So your I have a question. There's a Chicago booth, and everyone looks at the valuation approach. So what's your method of arriving at this valuation of 4 million or 20% for 800K?
Okay, we are doing that based on revenue of this year and next year. So I would say it's conservative because, like I said, this year we are looking to hit about we are on track to hit about 500, 600K revenue. okay, depending on the recovery curve after the COVID-19 pandemic. Next year, we have historically achieved a 4 times year-on-year growth rate. Okay, so next year we are estimating that with funding we will definitely be able to achieve 2 million in revenue. So that is about 2 times revenue.
Got it. But
Yeah.
but tell me something. So when you say you're hitting 500-600K in revenue,
Yeah.
how are you? Is that like your GMV, or is that the full amount? Is that what you keep, or is that
That is
that the amount that you're paying to the tutor?
No, that is what we keep.
So basically, what percentage do you all keep of the tutor's fee?
We keep, depends. Like I said, we have different models. So from the typical 1-to-1 tuition model, we keep 50% of the first month.
But 50% of only the first month.
Right, but because we have volume, because our inquiries are coming in every month, we have recurring and everything like that. So every month we are doing something about 300 to 400 matches.
Got it. So interesting. But what's a blended rate? Because if you're keeping like 10% overall as on a blended basis, that means you're doing like 5-6 million in revenue from in terms of tuition, right? And 5-6 million in revenue this year, if you're charging on average, I don't know what, let's say $20 an hour, right? That comes to what, 300,000 hours. So those numbers look pretty phenomenal.
$20 per hour is a very low rate. And most parents, I can tell you, we have parents who are coming to us for as many as 7 subjects for tuition. You know, we have parents like that. You know, their O levels is this year and they're taking 8 subjects. Out of these 8 subjects, they're looking for 7 subjects for tutoring. Okay, and each subject they're looking at, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. We have those kind, and we even do one growing market that we're tapping into, private candidates, for example. So private candidates are, people who are fully reliant on our teachers. They don't go to school. They just prepare for the O levels or A levels or IB examinations. So what we are really doing is we want to provide a marketplace for every learner. Like I mentioned, it's not just about primary level, primary, secondary, IB, JC, university. You want to learn languages or music or coding, any additional skill, we want to provide that. I think we really saw a growth in I'm very happy about the growth in online tuition after the pandemic. But I think one pity was that I think we saw a growth in music inquiries early this year. So we provided a lot of piano teachers, so we had a database as well. But I think one pity is that with the whole pandemic, that is an area that we are looking to tap on in the future again as well. So we want to diversify, not just focusing on education, even though education is a very big pool by itself already.
Got it. So basically your business has to build a brand of its own, right? And then you have to have all these people coming in, right? Because you can't have the tutor be the center of the equation, right? You need to have your own brand, your own marketing. So everyone comes in and then the tutors have to sign up with you because that's their source of income. Is that broadly the structure that you'll operate on?
Yeah, so we want to be like I think we are growing that market share. So we already have about 10,000 tutors and 5,000 of them are verified. And like I said, every month we are doing about 300 to 400 matches. So what we want to do is we want to grow this further. We don't want to just be the player in Singapore. We really want to be the player where I personally, because like for example, I'm a teacher myself and my partner is a teacher, used to be as a tutor himself as well. Okay, so what we really want to do is we want to bring this whole education to teach all the students in the region who need help.
Got it. So thanks, Brian. I'm just going to ask you, I'm just going to tie down the last 2 questions, which are somewhat related. Basically, the question is your dependency on tutors, right? Do you think that tutors, what happens if they leave for a higher percentage, right, from a different platform? Is it true that your growth would be limited by a fixed number of tutors in Singapore? How would you manage that? And it's also, one could also argue that the really good tutors have no shortage of students, right? So by self-selection, you don't get the best tutors. Would that be fair to say? So if you could just close this up with just articulating your impression of the role tutors play in your sort of business model, and how important it is to have them and how you retain them, that would be awesome.
Okay. Firstly is I would like to address that the good tutors don't need to market themselves. That's what you mentioned. I don't think that holds true for maybe 99% of teachers, because maybe only 1% of teachers, they don't have to look for additional students because they get a recurring base. So I don't really, because being a good teacher and being a good marketer, I think are different skill sets. So what we are trying to, what we are trying to do is, based on our historical record so far, actually, some of our assignments have as many as 100 applicants to teach. So we never had a shortage of teachers. So far, I can tell you, we have been operating for 3 years. We have had 300 inquiries a month. We never ever had a shortage of good teachers even. Okay, what we really had a shortage, so what we really need to do is, we need to market, we need to scale, get inquiries. So we never had that kind of problem. And how we, try to retain teachers, it's not that, so that my philosophy personally, I don't believe that because I have a lot of teachers, is to be unfair to them or squeeze them dry. My philosophy is, I believe in trying to be as fair to the teachers as possible. So in terms of commission policies, we have a very fair commission policy. If the assignment is terminated, we pay you. Okay. If the parent is the one that is not satisfied or is creating a problem, we will try to negotiate and help the tutor as much as possible. So that's what I instruct my whole team to do. It's not that it's a matching system. You don't, just because the parent is the one paying, it doesn't mean the parent is always right. We have to maintain fairness, and that is how I believe that, when people realize that that is the philosophy, and we are not just there, to earn the commission, we are there to provide a service to help them find jobs as well. I believe that that itself will create the recurring model. Yeah.
So let me just, I'm sorry, I want, there are a few more questions flowing in, so I'll just try to put them together as the real final question. But basically, you could add a little bit of detail on the numbers, and I'll explain a little bit. Like, so what's like your revenue, your average revenue per consumer or per user or per customer per year? That's one question. What would be like your gross margin, your operating margin based on, let's say, 500K in revenue? And how many matchings would you need to do in a month to hit your 2 million per year in revenue?
Okay, so we have two revenue streams. One is through matching. Okay, the other one is through the overriders that we earn from online tuition classes. So you mentioned what is the net profit, right? So after taking into account manpower costs, and we don't pay on commission. We don't believe in paying on commission because I don't want to operate like a sales agency. Okay, we pay on a fixed hourly rate. So after salaries, after advertising costs, we have a net profit margin of about 10 to 15%. Okay, if you just take into account minus advertising costs, we have a gross profit margin of about 50%. Okay, how many matches you need to do in a month to hit about 2 million? You will need about 1,000 to 1,500 matches to hit 2 million a year. Okay, which is definitely possible because in Singapore alone, there are 500,000 students, and I think you are aware about 70% of them have tuition at some point of their education. And more than 50% of them actually have a tutor every year. Okay, so that is definitely a possible number. And the average revenue that we earn on a matching basis is about $100 to $200. Okay, 150 to 200. And if you're talking about for tuition classes, meaning that those that we earn an overrider from, because we pay the tutor a fraction of what the parents are paying us for group tuition classes, then we earn an overrider of about 50 per month per student on average. And lastly, also is I think we also work with centers. So for centers, we earn about 300 to 400 per match. Sorry, I can't.
Sorry. I said thank you so much, Brian. It was wonderful hearing about your business. And I think we have to close this fantastic session. I think we are embarrassingly overshot time, but I think it was a vigorous and interesting discussion. Wanted to thank all of the participants, and especially Calvin and CK for making this happen. And perhaps I can just leave it to Calvin to figure out, some sort of online mingling, or, he's going to open it out. Please feel free to serve enjoy the free food, the canapes and everything that we have to offer. It's very easy to do that in a virtual context. So thank you, good night, and have a great rest of the Friday evening. Bye-bye. Over to you, Calvin.
Okay, so I don't know what's the best way to. I think everyone's a panelist now. If you guys want to mingle, you all can switch your cameras and your mics on, and you can ask any of the folks who are here any questions or things like that. I'm just going to give it a minute or two. I think all of you. Oops. I think all of you can and do what you want. Allow panelists to start video. Yeah. Can somebody try? See, maybe, I don't know, Federico or maybe Adrian, for example. Can you try to see if you can switch your video or your mic on? There you go. Okay. Okay, so this brings us to the official end of our session. We can leave it on for a bit if you all want to chit chat with each other. You can take your chats offline. If you want to connect directly, whoever is here still, to Brian or Federico, please feel free to do so. That's it for tonight. I mean, so just take it away, guys. Up to you guys. Ludo, you can jump in as well. Where are you, my fellow organizers? Kieran, maybe you want to leave your contact details one more time. We are also, for whoever's left here, we are also collating any follow-up. His contact details are in the chat there. There you go. Ludo, any thoughts? Yeah, your mic. I think your mic is on. Kieran, all good?
Hello.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, thank you for organizing. I think I learned a lot, especially personally on the effect of the COVID on everyone, whether on the investor side or the startup side, how it helps some, hinders others. And yeah, I guess it will be a good, hindsight for me next time I pitch a startup or a venture capitalist for fundraising, I would say.
I think Alpha's in house as well.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
How are you, mates? Good. It was, I think it was, I don't know. I joined in. At first I want to say much respect to the man who was facing a lot of fire. I know it's not easy to be in those, to sit on the other end and you have to talk about your business.
You raised recently, right, Alpha?
Yeah. So
yeah, you why don't you give Federico and Brian still here? And Brian one great tip for them. What was the secret of your race?
Drink a lot of coconuts. No, I think and right now we've actually, it's funny, right? Because we raised and we also decided to. We raised a couple of months ago and we decided to raise again. So we are pretty much almost very close to maybe close the round. So I think the key for me, it took about 1 year to close my first round. 1 year was the first time. So I don't know whether the other founders, have they raised before, or this is the first time they're raising fund? What is it? First time? The founders, is it first time or they have raised money?
Federico, first time?
Yeah, first.
Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, first time.
First time.
Okay,
right?
very good. I'm always happy to talk offline. Of course, I'm in Jakarta, but I'm very close to most of the guys, including Ludo and everything. So for me, I got to be honest, right? The people who helped me to raise money is the other guy sitting there, that French guy called Ludo, right? He became more like an informal mentor in terms of how to think through about fundraising, because the first fundraising is the hardest. I think it was just the hardest for me. It's been almost 19 months, 11 months just to close the round. The first time you raise money, you really do not know much about raising capital, right? Because part of that, you really do not know much about your business opportunity. And most importantly, what investors are looking for, right? I think at this stage, it's less about defending valuation versus about investing in the founder and investing with somebody who really understands the market and somebody who really understands the business, right? So yes, I believe when people say, early stage founders, early stage investors, they're investing more on the founder side versus mostly maybe on the business, right? I think that's what it typically is. But I think at this point, I think my biggest advice is really, really understand the market. Really, really understand your market. Really, really understand the economics of your business, right? And most importantly, understand the viability of your growth strategy. That's number one. Number two, let's not forget that maybe sometimes growth makes sense if it is very confined, especially for the early stage. I think for us, we made a couple of mistakes at the beginning because we wanted to grow so fast. We have all these different markets. We're jumping all over the place. But I think at the beginning, of course, to conserve, to be very careful, maybe focus in few markets, right? In terms of your expansion plans, because these markets are so big, right? Of course, if you're running a SaaS business, there's no boundaries. But maybe at this stage, maybe try to tell us your story around one core market you really know well, right? And drive your story on that market and become the expert on that market, okay? And then whatever comes subsequent is an offshoot that the investor, they already believe that you can actually come in that market, whether there's Singapore, whether there's Thailand, and you can win in that market, right? If you are raising on one market, great. But if you're telling me that you can go to Indonesia, you can go to Singapore, you can go to Thailand, well, Indonesia is a different animal, right? So education system is different here. And the propensity for some of these mothers to spend is not as much as Singapore or China. It's a different animal here. So then the market becomes smaller, right? So then who knows? Maybe an investor can be from Singapore or from Indonesia. If you're an investor from Indonesia, you're going to have a tough time to justify that spending because they know the market more than you do, right? So I think for your situation, maybe just focus on if you're raising the capital, you're likely your first investor could be from the market where you're actually focusing first. If it is Singapore, most likely it would be a Singaporean investor. If it is Indonesia, most likely it could be the Indonesian investor because they know the market. But the moment you start to do like pre-Series A, Series A, then you start to see your port really expanding, right? Like for us at this point, of course, we're now doing our seed round. We are seeing, we are doing due diligence investment in Bangladesh. I'm also did deal with a United States investor and also did deal with a couple of Indonesian and also Singaporean investors. So the tent is getting bigger. My first round was all Indonesian investors, right? But the second round is going to be a little bit regional expansive, including also the Philippines. So yeah, it's not easy. It's hard to raise money. But most importantly, admit to things you don't know. Don't come up with bullshit in some of these answers. If you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know. I've done it. I look so bad in the first, I think I talked to more than 60 investors, 60 the first time, right? It takes time. But you'll find out that when you do it, it's like a big jump. And I think the subsequent raises can be a little bit more comfortable. Nothing guaranteed, can be more comfortable because they've been tried and tested versus what you did the first time. So that's my advice. But I'm happy to speak, so I can send you my email. I'm always happy to help out, especially with the show.
Yeah, Alpha, if you could stick your details below, that would be fantastic. Can I since we are hanging out for a bit, can I cold call maybe Adrian? Adrian's on the buy side, and he has also somehow been persuaded to join the Mesh Bio as an advisor. How do you get someone? How do you entice from the buy side perspective? Somebody that to get convinced and also to convince you to become an advisor. You gotta switch on your mic.
I don't think you heard it. Uh-oh.
Adrian, switch on your mic.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So I actually joined. So I've actually been on both the both sides of the fence. And I predominantly focus on healthcare. So this is probably where Federico, some of the questions you were asked probably came from me. So with Mesh Bio, I basically helped Andrew and advised them more on the integration and data strategies, just because of my experience with working in the healthcare systems. And then on the buy side right now, these days, you know, with my current role, I actually do incubation and pre-seed and in the seed investments to startups. So I think what Alpha brought up was very relevant. One of the things that you will see different investors evaluate companies in different ways. When I was working out of the US and with startups in the US, I was always told that there's two or three ways that different investors in different markets look at startups. There are the ones who look at your vision and you sell them a vision. And then you have the ones who are a lot more grounded and look at traction and revenue, and they want to see you actually have commercial traction before they invest in you. And then there are others that are more focused on specific verticals. So they're never going to look at anything that's not of interest to them. So you have to know who your investor is and what their track record and what they are looking out for. So if you're selling a vision to an investor, you got to pitch your vision very strongly. If you are more in a room where people are more grounded and really looking and asking you questions about your traction and your product roadmap, you know, whether you've done all your homework, have you looked at market entry barriers, you know, I'll give an example. This is more to Federico again. So when you look at Singapore, for example, when you're trying to enter mental health space here in Singapore, there's only one player, one huge player in Singapore that does mental health and has the majority share, and that's the government. Everyone else out in the market is, you know, a private consultant. They have their own clinics, but majority of the services all go back to the government, and that's because the government pays here in Singapore. So you need to know who is going to pay for your revenue, who's going to have to give you the green light to operate within the market. And that's not to say that you have to compete against the big behemoth here, which is the government. You just have to find a way to partner with them and get your foot in the door that way, right? So that's the sort of thing that somebody's going to ask you to see if you've actually studied and understood the market that you're trying to enter. Same thing for education, same thing for any other industry that we're trying to penetrate. So those sorts of questions that are probing and asking you to see if you've done your homework, that's an investor trying to see if you're grounded. And especially in this day, when you heard in the very opening part of the session where investors are not as gung-ho anymore, they're being more cautious, they're trying to be more prudent with how they're investing. They're looking less for the vision in some cases now and trying to make sure they're making good investments that can tide out any of the downturns that are happening in the market. So I think that's really something you guys should be cognizant of, you know, when you pitch is what's your message to the investor. And Brian, you're in a very hot industry, education, online education. Same thing with what Alpha is doing. There's lots of different companies out there clamoring for this space. Same thing in healthcare. Mental health is a very big thing right now with COVID, with quarantine. Everyone is talking about the impact and stress on mental health. So these are all good spaces to be in. But it also means that there's going to be a lot of people trying to get into this space. So you just have to be ready to defend your position.
Thanks, Adrian.
I can rebound.
Guys, I'm gonna jump off for a bit, but I wanted to call call on especially Kieran and Ludo. So these two gentlemen, Kieran also maybe more buy side perspectives, and Ludo, Brian and Federico. If you are not already connected to Ludo, you definitely want to connect with him because he's sniffing around all these kind of interesting networks. I think it'll be
Thank you.
So I'm gonna jump out. Take care, guys. All the very best. I'll catch you again soon.
Thank you, Calvin. Thank you very much.
So I just had can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, just one thing to rebound on what Adrian and Alpha said for Federico and Brian that are looking to raise money. So Alpha, is all around. He saw, as he said, like 60 VCs. What you want to do is obviously like prepare your pitch really, really hard, because that will be most of the time that's your barrier to entry. And also know your investors. As Adrian said, know your investors. Do your due diligence before you go pitch them. Know what they already invested in, what are their mandate in general, so that from 500 that you might pitch, you can like target more specifically, so that when you pitch them, actually you know that they might be interested in your space. And be ready for hard questions. And as Alpha said, don't bullshit them, because like the first bullshit, they will kick you in the stands.
No, I think also just to add something interesting with what Luke already alluded, and even Adrian touched on this. It's not easy to do this, right? Let's not bullshit each other here. Sorry, guys, I'm too direct. It's not easy to do what we do, but at the end of the day, I think the biggest mistake in raising capital is to tell Ludo, if he's a VC investor, 1 + 1 is 2, and then you go tell Kevin to go tell, let's say, Federico, that 1 + 1 is 3. So you're telling two VCs investors trying to, jackpot them or counter each other, right? Because you'll be surprised that the VC circle is very, very small. It's very, very small. I learned my lesson here in Southeast Asia, right? Most of these guys, they know each other. Most likely they have the WhatsApp groups within the circle. So if you're pitching to an investor sitting in Singapore, most likely the VC you're pitching in Manila or in Jakarta know that investor, right? So I think consistency and just being direct and maybe try not to, counter here or tell this person this to see how it works can be of your best asset. So yeah, I think consistency and ability to improve will be your biggest asset. So
May I ask a question? This is Federico speaking. Can you hear me?
Yep.
But any of you, by your experience, because let's speak about a very practical situation, which is the current one. Lockdown or not lockdown, we cannot travel that much as we did in the past. I've been in Singapore quite a few times. I was studying there and I was coming even for personal reasons there. But if I want to pitch in Singapore, I'm based in Italy now since 2 years. Does it matter nowadays the fact that you cannot be physically there? Maybe the question is banal, but I've always believed that also personal touch and personal presence can count. What do you think about this?
Not really. So what I've noticed is for the first month, it mattered a lot. People were relinquent and they didn't know how to react, but business still goes on. So go on LinkedIn, do your research, contact them, when you ask for their invite, send a 300 character word. This is what I do. Would you have, I would be delighted to be part of your network. As soon as they accept you, send another mail, text, explaining what you're looking for, and you would be delighted to have a Zoom call or just a call. They understand the situation. They understand you cannot travel, so they would be more than willing, especially in Asia. I don't know I'm sure you've heard the term Guangxi. Everything works.
Yeah, of course. I've lived in China for 7 years,
so you know how it works. Like, talk around, get yourself known, and don't hesitate to cold call. Send, like, not mass mailing, targeted mailing, of course, but all of them would take 5, 10, 30 minutes to talk with you, because they're all looking. At first, for the first month, they were relinquent to listen to new ideas because they wanted their already invested investments to survive the crisis. But now they're open for more. So for me, it's not a break.
Thank you very much.
It'll probably take 6 months of speaking to them anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We'll start now on Zoom. Hopefully you'll be able to talk to them in person sometime.
Because I think it was Quirky that said, you know, like it's always better when I know the startup in which I'm going to invest beforehand, so that I can follow them. You know, they keep you on their track list, on their track record, so that within time, you know, the relationship will build on, and then you will be more able to have your conversation with them. It's like planting a seed and then watering it.
Yeah. So are you guys raising capital for the, sorry, I came in a little bit late in the game. Are you guys raising capital for the Southeast Asian market, or for Southeast Asia, or for other markets with your businesses? Sorry, I missed some other demos. Are you raising capital for the Southeast Asian market? That's where your market is focused, or is for something else?
You're talking to
To
us,
you.
example?
Yeah, to
Any
people
of the
who-
presenters?
Yeah.
Yeah. In our case, it would be Singapore. Singapore.
Okay.
A business that we want to incorporate in Singapore. It already exists somewhere else. It's not a startup, but we want to incorporate it there. It already works somewhere else in the world. And yeah, definitely would be for Singapore.
I believe, like as Adrian said, you might want to have links with the governments, because they are the main and only players. So if you can be backed up by the governments, it would be a huge BTE that just explodes. I mean, there's no more BTE because you're backed up by them.
Yeah, in fact, originally this idea 1 year ago was a B2B. And when we designed things was about well-being in workplaces, at work. So when we thought of the most advanced place where things were not only clear, because everywhere this subject now comes to surface, but nowhere like in Singapore, as far as I can see, it is analyzed and even faced, because there's a board already in Singapore. There is already activities going on. So yeah, we were thinking that we will not go private there. We will go for not for looking for investors, but for contacts in the government.
Have you talked to like development finance institutions, DFIs? Like, that's something that makes sense to me. I used to be in that world, and what you're offering seems like something that they might want to fund. So that's like sort of part private, part public. But
how are they called? Sorry, again?
Development finance institutions. So the one in the US is USAID, but every European country has one. You know,
yeah. Okay, I thought you were talking of Singapore. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
we have
this
our
isn't
own
one for Singapore.
government.
This is more in general. Yeah.
All right.
And everybody here is a Booth alum, right?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So there's no Harvard. That's good. Okay. So I think there's some early stage, right? I think Federico, maybe company is a little bit late stage, right? Is it like late stage?
No. The company already exists somewhere else, but the zero in Singapore. We have nothing. We have never. This is the first time we speak about that.
I see. But
first time we speak about that.
I see. What about the people raising what, pre-seed? Or is it pre-seed, right? It's a pre-seed round for
what do you mean?
Presenters. No, there's some people who presented. Is that pre-seed round or what? The one who presented before. I think the founders who presented. Which round are you guys raising the capital? Is it founders round?
For us, it's the first round. For us, it's the first round.
I see. Okay. Okay, listen, send me an email. I know some people who only want to give money to Chicago Booth people, so I can maybe, I don't know, nothing's guaranteed, but I'm happy to introduce you guys to my current investors.
Okay.
Just send me an email with your deck or whatever, you know, don't just keep it simple. Send me an email deck, I introduce you to my investors and see it out. But everybody's a Chicago Booth alum. I don't know you guys, if you're a Booth, but it's all good. If you're a Booth, I'll help, I don't care. So just send me the email with the decks and I can just introduce, you know, you guys can take it from there. Okay?
Thank you very much.
All right. My email is right there. My phone number is there. If you're a Chicago Booth person, you invest in Chicago, I'm always willing to help. That guy, Lou, they helped me so much. He keeps helping me all the time. So I just want to pay forward. So you guys email me, whatever I can do. Thank you very much. May God bless you. Thank you. Peace
Thank
out.
God bless everyone. I have to go too. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Bye bye.